I broke up with my boyfriend after he caught me with my ex in our apartment. Then he suddenly stopped paying the car debt I gifted my ex. He is crazy for spying on me and making himself miserable, and it's not fair. Sometimes relationships just run their course, they stagnate. That is what happened to Alberto and me. We had been together for 4 years and life had become predictable. A comfortable routine of work, dinners, and TV series. Alberto is a good man, there is no doubt about that. He is stable, responsible, and, for a long time, I thought that was all I needed, but lately I felt something was missing, a spark and emotion. The relationship was not broken, it was simply on autopilot. My small decision, the one that started it all, was incredibly innocent. My ex, Simone, with whom I broke up almost 5 years ago, wrote to me on social media. We had not spoken in a long time. He told me he was going through a rough patch, that he had lost his job and was feeling a bit lost. Simone and I always had a very intense connection, more passionate than the one I have with Alberto. I felt a pang of compassion. I decided that the human thing to do, was to offer him my support as a friend. We started talking via messages. I listened to his problems, I encouraged him. It was all completely platonic. Alberto knew we were talking. I told him, "Hey, Simone wrote to me, he's going through a tough time." Alberto, who has always been a bit passive and conflict avoidant, simply shrugged and said, "Oh, okay." His lack of reaction was, in a way, a green light. Clearly, he did not care. He did not see him as a threat. A couple of weeks later, Simone told me that one of the things that most prevented him from getting back on his feet was the lack of mobility. His old car had died and he had no money to fix it or buy another one. Without a car, it was impossible for him to look for work outside his neighborhood. It was a casual conversation, but the idea stuck with me. I saw an opportunity to do something really good, a gesture that could change his life. It was not a decision about my relationship with Alberto, it was a humanitarian decision. At the end of the day, helping an old friend in need was the only logical decision. The first escalation was the car plan. I knew that proposing to Alberto that we buy a car for my ex was crazy, even for his passivity. So I had to be strategic. I started talking about how we needed a second car. I made up excuses, that sometimes our schedules clashed, that it would be useful for running errands. Alberto, although not very convinced, did not object firmly. He simply said we did not have the money to buy one outright. And that is where my plan became more elaborate. I proposed financing it. I told him we could get a loan in our name, since our combined credit history was excellent. And to convince him, I told him that I would cover part of the monthly payment with the extra money I earned from some freelance jobs, a white lie, since I barely had enough for my own expenses. The key to my argument was that the debt would be in both our names, a couple's project, but that the main responsibility would be mine. After several conversations, and seeing that I was very determined, he finally agreed. As always, he avoided confrontation. We went to the dealership. I chose a modest, but reliable car, a second-hand utility vehicle. Throughout the process, I talked about the car as our second car. We signed the papers together. The debt was officially in our name. A couple of days later, I gave the keys to Simone. I told him it was a long-term loan, that he could use the car for as long as he needed to get back on his feet. His gratitude was overwhelming. I felt incredibly powerful and good. I had solved his problem in a brilliant way. Of course, I had to lie to Alberto. I told him I had lent the car to a cousin of mine from another city who needed it temporarily. It was a necessary lie to keep the peace. Alberto did not even know that cousin, so he did not ask questions. In my head, everything was perfectly justified. I was paying my share of the payment, or at least that is what I made him believe. And a friend was receiving vital help. It was a situation in which, in theory, no one lost out. In the end, it was the only logical decision to achieve my goal without causing unnecessary drama. The point of no return was reached when Simone's gratitude transformed into something more. With the car, his confidence returned. He started going out more, socializing, and, naturally, he wanted to thank me. He started inviting me for coffee for lunch. At first I kept my distance, But the old spark, that intense connection we always had, was still there. Alberto, for his part, lived in his own world, increasingly emotionally distant, or perhaps I began to perceive him that way to justify my own actions. One afternoon, after a particularly bad day at work, I called Simone. I needed to vent. He invited me to his apartment for a glass of wine. I went. I knew it was a bad idea, but the need to feel heard and desired was stronger. We talked for hours, we laughed, we remembered old times, and then it happened. We kissed. It was not planned, simply the culmination of weeks of growing tension. From that kiss on, everything accelerated. I started seeing Simone secretly. Our old apartment, the one we shared with Alberto, became my secret refuge during the afternoons when Alberto worked late. I convinced myself that I was not doing anything so terrible. My relationship with Alberto was dead in the water, even if neither of us had admitted it. This with Simone was a way to feel alive again. I was not betraying Alberto, I was simply seeking the happiness that he no longer provided me. The car debt became a kind of twisted symbol of my double life. Alberto continued to see how the payment was made every month from our joint account. I transferred my share to him religiously, believing I was contributing to a family asset, when in reality I was financing the vehicle my lover used to come see me in our own home. The irony was almost poetic. I knew I was playing with fire, that I had built a house of cards on a foundation of deceit, but the thrill was addictive. I was in too deep to turn back. The collapse was so cliché it could have come from a bad movie. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Alberto had sent me a message saying his last meeting had been cancelled and he would be home early. I read the message, but I underestimated it. I thought early meant half an hour early, not 2 hours. Simone and I were in our apartment, in our bedroom. I heard the sound of the key in the lock. My heart stopped. There was no time to react, to hide, to make up an excuse. The bedroom door opened and there was Alberto, with his briefcase in his hand and a tired expression that transformed, in a split second, into shock, disbelief and a mute pain that emptied his eyes. He looked at us, at me, at Simone, the unmade bed. The silence that followed was the heaviest and most horrible I have ever experienced in my life. Simone, panicking, began to get dressed hastily, murmuring apologies. Alberto ignored him, did not yell at him, did not look at him. His eyes were fixed on me. I, for my part, tried to defend myself. I resorted to attack. I started yelling at Alberto, accusing him of our lack of passion, of his emotional distance. I told him that if he had been a better boyfriend, I would not have had to seek comfort elsewhere. I threw years of accumulated frustrations in his face, turning my betrayal into a consequence of his failings. He did not react to my screams, he just stood there, absorbing my words. When Simone finally left, Alberto spoke in a strangely calm voice. He said, "It is over, Sofia." And I, in a final act of defiance, told him I know, I agree. This hasn't been working for a long time. I pretended the breakup was my decision, that it was a mutual liberation. And at that moment, to avoid feeling like the villain, I convinced myself it was true. The breakup was, in fact, by mutual agreement. The separation was, at first, civilized. I moved in with Simone. Alberto stayed in the apartment. We agreed to divide our things without lawyers. It seemed we were going to handle it like two adults and, for the first month, everything went as planned. The car payment, which was still being debited from our old joint account, was paid as always. I assumed that Alberto, being the responsible and predictable man he was, would simply continue with the payments until the loan was paid off. After all, his name was on the contract too. It was his legal responsibility, as much as mine. But this month everything has changed. I received an angry call from Simone. The bank had called him, as I had put his number as a secondary contact at the dealership. They informed him that this month's payment had been returned. The payment had not been made. I panicked. I called Alberto, he did not answer. I sent him an angry text message asking why he had not paid the installment. His reply came an hour later. A single, cold text message. "The car was your idea. Your ex, your problem. From now on you're on your own with this. I have already cancelled my part of the direct debit. And then he blocked me. I cannot believe his pettiness. He is a cheapskate. He is breaking a financial agreement, a legal contract that he himself signed, just out of spite. He is using money to punish me. This is not fair. The breakup was one thing, a mutual decision to end a relationship that was no longer working. But this is something completely different. This is a business matter. His name is on that paper. He has an obligation. His refusal to pay is not a matter of principle. It is an act of childish and petty revenge. Now Simone is furious with me. The bank is harassing me with calls and all because Alberto cannot separate his hurt feelings from his financial responsibilities. How can he be so incredibly cheap and irresponsible? Popular comments from Reddit. Anonymous user 1. Let me get this straight. You cheated on your boyfriend in your own home. You lied to him so he would co-sign a loan for a car you gave to your lover, and now that he, logically, refuses to continue paying for your new boyfriend's car, he is the cheapskate? The mental gymnastics you are doing to avoid any kind of responsibility are gold medal worthy. He is not a cheapskate, he is a man who has finally grown a backbone. Response from the OP. You all are obsessed with the cheating part and are missing the main point. This is a contract, a legal document. His feelings about how our relationship ended are completely irrelevant to his legal obligations. Can you just stop paying your mortgage because you are sad? No. He is an adult and needs to act like one. His temper tantrum is going to cost both of us a bad credit history. It is stupidity, not a backbone. Anonymous user 2. The breakup was by mutual agreement. No, it was not. You got caught red-handed and then you tried to spin it to make it seem like a shared decision. It was a breakup caused 100% by your infidelity. And now you expect him to continue financing the life you have with the man you cheated on him with. The audacity is truly impressive. He owes you nothing, neither financially nor emotionally. In fact, you owe him a massive apology and probably half the value of the car. Response from the OP. Why would I owe him anything? The idea for the car was an act of generosity on my part, a gesture to help someone. Alberto benefited from my good heart for years. The least he can do is fulfill his last contractual obligation. At the end of the day, this shows the kind of person he is. When things get tough, he runs away from his responsibilities. Anonymous user 3. You are practicing textbook gaslighting. You blame Alberto for your infidelity if he had been a better boyfriend. You redefine the breakup as mutual to absolve yourself of guilt. And now you call him a cheapskate for refusing to continue being your financial accomplice. You refuse to connect your actions with their consequences. Alberto did not stop paying out of nowhere. He stopped paying because the premise under which he signed that contract, that you were a couple building a future, turned out to be a monumental lie. Response from the OP. It is not gaslighting, it is the truth. A relationship is a system. If one part of the system fails, his lack of attention and passion, the other part seeks compensation. It is natural. He contributed to the deterioration of the relationship as much as I did, and the car contract was signed. There is no clause that says, this contract will be void in case of infidelity. He is making up his own rules to fit his victim narrative. Update 1. 2 months have passed and my life has become a bureaucratic and financial nightmare. The bank, of course, does not care about our personal dramas. They just want their money. Since Alberto refuses to pay, they are demanding the entire debt from me. I have had to start paying the full installment myself and I can barely afford it. Simone, who was furious at first, now feels guilty and helps me with what he can, but he barely has any income. I have tried everything to make Alberto see reason. I asked his mother to talk to him. She told me, with a coldness that chilled me, that Alberto is making his own decisions now and maybe you should have thought about the consequences before. His own mother has taken his side. Of course, his whole family has slammed the door in my face, treating me like a pariah. Desperate, I consulted a lawyer. I explained the situation, showed him the financing contract signed by both of us. The lawyer gave me terrible news. He told me that although legally we are both responsible for the debt to the bank, in a divorce proceeding, a judge would very likely consider the car a gift to a third party, made in bad faith and without the full consent of the other party. He said the judge would most likely assign 100% of the responsibility for the debt to me. He told me my best option was to try to reach an agreement with Alberto, but he does not want to negotiate, so I'm trapped. Legally, I'm tied to Alberto in this debt, but morally and judicially I'm alone and he knows it. He is using the system to punish me. He enjoys watching me struggle, watching me drown in debt. And everyone applauds him. They see him as the victim who is finally fighting back. No one sees the cruelty, the pettiness of his actions. No one sees that he is using money as a weapon. I still cannot believe that the good, passive man I knew has turned into this vengeful monster. Popular comments from Reddit on the update. Anonymous user 4. No one sees the cruelty, the pettiness of his actions. No, what we see is a man who is protecting himself from further exploitation. He has not become a vengeful monster. He has become a man who is no longer willing to be a doormat. The lawyer told you the truth you don't want to hear. In the real world, actions have consequences. You cheated on your partner and used your joint funds to benefit your lover. The judge will see that and rightly assign you the responsibility. Response from the OP. The judicial system is clearly biased. It focuses on the morality of infidelity instead of the fine print of a contract. A contract is a contract. His hurt feelings should have no place in a court of law. This is not justice, it is a moral lynching. And it is ridiculous that I have to pay the price for the system's inability to be objective. Anonymous user 5. Your ex-mother-in-law is absolutely right. Alberto is making his own decisions now. For years, he was a passive enabler, allowing your decisions to drive the relationship. Now, finally, he is taking charge of his own life, and the first decision is to cut you off completely. It is not surprising that his family supports him. They are probably relieved that he is finally rid of you. Response from the OP. His family was always part of the problem. They never really supported me. They always looked at me with suspicion, and now they are using this to confirm their prejudices. I'm not surprised. They are as cold and calculating as he is. Like father, like son. Anonymous user 6. You still don't understand the fundamental concept. He owes you nothing. He does not owe you his money, his time, or his compassion. You showed him that you were not a reliable partner. Why should he continue to treat you as one? Every attempt you make to blame him, his family, the legal system, only takes you further away from the only real solution. Accept your responsibility, sell the car if necessary, and pay your own debt. Response from the OP. Sell the car. And how is Simone supposed to look for a job then? How's he going to get back on his feet? Selling the car would be punishing him for a problem between Alberto and me, and that would be truly unfair. Simone is the only innocent victim here. I'm not going to do that to him. Final update. I guess this is the end of the story. The divorce was finalized last week. And, as the lawyer predicted, it was a massacre. The judge was an older man, clearly old school. He lectured me on the sanctity of marriage and dishonesty and, of course, assigned me the entire car debt. Alberto left the courthouse without even looking at me, with his lawyer smiling smugly. Total victory for the cheapskate team. The relationship with Simone has crumbled under the financial pressure. Arguments about money are constant. He feels guilty about the debt, and I feel resentful because he cannot help more. The passion and excitement that brought us together have evaporated, replaced by stress and anxiety. It is not the fairy tale I imagined, it is just difficult. I look at my life now and it is unrecognizable. I have lost my home, my financial stability, and the relationship I risked it all for. Everything is unraveling. And in all this time, I have not received a single word of remorse from Alberto, not an offer of help, not even for old time's sake. He has washed his hands of it completely, leaving me to drown while he sails calmly on his yacht of moral superiority. I have not learned any deep lessons. I have not had an epiphany. My conclusion remains the same. I was punished for a mistake, yes, but the magnitude of the punishment, orchestrated by a vengeful ex and a misogynistic judicial system, has been disproportionate. Alberto is not a saint. He is a petty man who found the perfect excuse to reveal his true cheap and controlling nature. I don't regret trying to help Simone. My only regret is having spent 4 years of my life with a man who, in the end, Valued money more than people. Popular comments from Reddit on the final update. Anonymous user. 1. Even in total ruin you cling to your narrative. It is truly impressive. It was not a vengeful ex and a misogynistic judicial system. It was a hurt man who protected himself legally and a judge who applied the law based on your demonstrable actions of financial deceit. You are still the victim in your own story, even though every disaster has been a direct consequence of your own decisions. Response from the OP. My narrative is my truth, and my truth is that I was punished disproportionately. You can call it whatever you want, but I know what I lived through. I lived with a man who judged me and who used my first stumble to destroy me. The end. Anonymous user 7. My only regret is having spent 4 years of my life with a man who valued money more than people. What irony. You were the one who put a monetary value, the price of a car, on your friendship with your ex and used someone else's money to pay for it. And now he is the one who values money over people. The projection is astounding. Response from the OP. It is not projection, it is a fact. If he valued people, he would have forgiven me. He would have understood my motivation. His refusal to do so shows that his value system is cold and calculating. I'm glad I got rid of him, even though the price was high. Anonymous user 8. This story should be pinned to the top of the subreddit as a perfect example of how not to accept any responsibility. From the small decision to the total ruin, the blame always lies with someone else. Your passive boyfriend, then your cheapskate boyfriend, his family, the legal system, everyone but you. It is a tragedy in the purest sense, a character with a fatal flaw that leads to their own destruction, without ever understanding why. Response from the OP. I understand perfectly why. I was destroyed by the pettiness of others. It is not a fatal flaw, it is bad luck. Bad luck for having surrounded myself with people who did not have the capacity to forgive. That is the only tragedy here.